Jim Harbaugh to the Los Angeles Chargers, Sam. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest dominoes to fall in terms of coaching hires this offseason. All for seeing Harbaugh back in the NFL and him going to the Chargers, who have obviously the clearest sort of established star quarterback in Justin Herbert. I mean, it's got to be fun, right?
Yeah, I'm interested in this stylistically, right? The last time we saw Jim Harbaugh, he was obviously the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers. He had, I believe it was near instant success.
Yeah.
With the 49ers.
Right? I mean, his resume is pretty crazy. He's had success and fairly instant sustained success everywhere he's gone.
It took a little bit in Michigan.
At multiple levels. Right. But even in Michigan, he ends up, crowning it with a national championship. He'd put up like some of the most absurd statistics you're ever going to see in the world ever with Josh Johnson back in San Diego when he first started. Like, his resume is pretty crazy.
And so he turned Stanford from just nothing, a laughingstock, into a competitive team. He turned the Niners, who were at a really bad spot, into a team that went to the Super Bowl, of course, lost to his brother in the Super Bowl. And the Niners almost instantly turned around. And like you said, Michigan goes from just years of mediocrity to in the college football playoff and then finally winning the national championship. So, of course, going to the division with the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, I'm always interested in the hires and what they're going to do stylistically and how you combat that, because you're always going to be the underdog here, I think, for as long as Mahomes and Andy Reid are together. So you're the underdog. You do have a Justin Herbert, but Jim Harbaugh's forte has been running the ball and trying to play good defense, and has not been the forte of the Chargers. They have not run the ball effectively. They have not stopped the run. They've been a very inconsistent defense over the last few years. Interested to see how he puts his stamp on things, with Herbert, of course, being the key there.
That's the thing. Remember, we were so excited by what Brandon Staley could bring to the Chargers defense because they had incredible talent, and at the time they hired him, he was fresh off running the number one defense in the NFL with the scheme that was currently, the most popular scheme in the NFL. You're like, this is a perfect matchup. Well, okay, it didn't work out. Now, Jim Harbaugh, the reports have been that he's going to be bringing significant pieces of his Michigan staff to the Chargers, including Jesse Minter, the defensive coordinator there. I mean, if he's the Michigan defense has been nasty. If they're able to bring that kind of defense or that kind of defensive success to that group that still remains talented, that still has a ton of really good playmakers, and actually get the potential out of that Chargers defensive unit, in addition to having Justin Herbert on the other side of the ball, I mean, that is a recipe for success.
So we'll have a preview of that, right? Mahomes and the Ravens this weekend going up against that similar scheme. And, that's also the scheme that has slowed down, for whatever it's worth, if that matters, slowed down the Shanahan offense. The Shanahan offense that has three quarterbacks leading the league in yards per attempt this year, in Brock Purdy, Tua, and C.J. Stroud. So that might be the right recipe for the NFL. In addition to, we always talk about hires, coaching hires, as like, well, this is the hot offensive coordinator or the hot defensive coordinator. Jim Harbaugh is the CEO type. He's not necessarily bringing a scheme. He's bringing a culture. He's bringing a style. He wants to have 15 tight ends on the field, and he does want to run the ball. And so, but at the same time, he's bringing CEO, head coach type of experience. So I think it's a fascinating hire. I like it for the Chargers. I'm interested to see what they do offensively. If they do go heavy tight ends, run the ball, and maybe they take a little pressure off Herbert. He's been a high volume, throw the ball underneath type of quarterback to this point. Does this make him morph into heavy personnel, downfield passer a little bit more? Because we know Herbert can do that. We always talk about his field flipping ability with his arm. That actually might mesh with what Harbaugh wants to do offensively. And it might also mesh with what the Chargers have as far as an aging Mike Williams, an aging Keenan Allen. Don't need as many receivers. Just get a couple deep threats and, start stretching the field.
And then the missing piece of the puzzle becomes, what do the Chargers do at general manager? Because, one of the reasons you're going to get the gig?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well,
I can work with Jim.
I imagine you could.
I can get Jim to buy into the model. I've got...
you got laminated sheets.
I got some results here.
Well, that's not laminated.
It's a model results. Like, if you want a receiver, this is my receiver page.
Yeah.
I can improve your hit rate.
So one of the reasons...
I can double your hit rate in the second round and the third round.
Right. one of the reasons it broke down in San Francisco was apparently Harbaugh and Trent Baalke, couldn't get on the same page consistently. Like, I assume they're still going to be hiring a general manager, and they're not giving total control to Harbaugh, but that general manager is now going to have to come in and be capable of working with him and maybe be willing to defer to him to a degree, in a way that apparently Baalke wasn't. So that becomes the next focus now: is who the Chargers hire at GM, or how much of a puppet is Steve willing to be?
For millions?
Yeah, total puppet.
I was gonna use a graphic description of what happens to a puppet, but I was gonna say, for millions,
yeah,
I'll be your puppet.
What type of puppet would you be?
The one from Mr. Rogers, King Friday. Be like King Friday. What do you mean? What kind? What kind of puppets are there?
Well, there's the ones on the strings, where like the puppet master, or
no, I'd be too awkward.
Or there's like a hand up the back puppet.
That was what I was gonna say earlier. Yeah. I was like, you could stick your hand up my back for millions. I'll be your mouthpiece puppet for sure.
So we're envisaging now a dynamic where Jim Harbaugh's hand is elbow deep up Steve, making the puppet controls work.
Yeah, and if things don't work, the real goal is to get fired after year one. Go home.
I would imagine if things don't work, the real goal is to have his hand removed from being elbow deep.
Whatever.
Up wherever it's up.
Whatever. The real dream is a 4-year contract, fired after 1 year, come back to the podcast, spend time with the kids, right?
Right.
Feel pretty good about the bank account.
Time on the beach.
That's the goal. Not that's bad for the interview. I'll be interviewing.
No, you don't tell them that.
No.
Right.
They don't listen. The owners aren't listening to this, right?
Oh, what if that's part of your your background check?
We're
there's
gonna
like AI that can scrape the podcast and stuff and repeat back to them a little.
So when I send in my resume and everything, I will send in clips of fixing every team in 5 minutes.
Yes.
This is what I'll probably send full episodes and just say, I've got a plan.
I mean, I would find the ones where we got it right.
Yeah, there you go.
Right.
That's right.
Rather than, here's
not
how
the
I
ones
fixed.
like, sign Ali Villanueva right. and Will Fuller over
here's
and over
how
again.
I fixed a team that did exactly what we told them to do, and it went terribly.
Yeah. Are we done here today?
Yeah.
Do we need social can cut that at the right time? Do we need a special conclusion for the Jim Harbaugh segment?
No, I don't think so. Brandon Katz in the chat says Sam and Steve are significantly overrating Harbaugh's time in San Francisco. He had the best roster in the NFL, and he beat up on bad NFC teams. He struggled in big games, and his time in San Francisco was overrated.
What was his first year? Was it 2009? Because I think when Mike Singletary was there, remember, they were a train wreck.
Yeah.
And they had good players. They had that 1 year.
It's worth pointing out that his quarterbacks were Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick. I mean, it's not
there was that too. Alex Smith turned a corner in 2011, middle of 2011.
Alex Smith, when he arrived, was gone. I mean, they were like, dude, it's time. We need to get you the hell out of the building.
Year 5, and he was a bust. Whatever.
Disaster.
He was not a good first overall pick.
Right.
Alex Smith started playing good football.
Pretty good football.
Good football in 2011 and most of 2012. And then Harbaugh made the move and said, actually, we're going to upgrade with Colin Kaepernick because he's going to add the running component to it. And then Alex Smith converted all that into this contract with the Chiefs. And that was actually a turning point in Alex Smith's career because he played pretty well with the Chiefs as well.
Yeah.
But Harbaugh was the first.
Rescued him.
Yes. Harbaugh was a part of that. They did have a defense that was they never subbed. They were 13 deep. Right, Justin Smith, and they drafted Aldon Smith. I know, I remember all that stuff. They had a good team. That's fine. But again, how much was Harbaugh involved in personnel?
Yeah,
with Trent Baalke there, how much was he involved in adding some of those?
He did make a discernible difference. Pre and post Harbaugh is fairly obvious with that franchise.
Then they went Jim Tomsula? Was it Tomsula right after him, or was it Chip Kelly right after Harbaugh? The transition after that was not smooth.
Right.
I think Tomsula and Kelly each got a year. I don't know if that was directly after Harbaugh, but it was close.
Let's find out what Wikipedia says. 49ers coaches by season.
He finished in 14, and then Tomsula 15, and then Kelly 16.
And then Shanahan.
Right? So the transition after that took a few years.
Yeah.
After Harbaugh. So
Tomsula went 5-11.
I remember stuff.
Chip Kelly went 2-14. And
I got you, Brandon.
This was fresh off Harbaugh.
Delaney
being
Walker
really
was
good.
the backup tight end. He was awesome. I know. They had a good squad.
That was after Singletary had been under 500. Then Tom Sula was exactly 500. Oh, no, he had one. He won one game as an interim, and then Harbaugh comes in.
Well, guess what? I know he's not a friend of the show, but soon maybe he will be. Tom Telesco.
Oh.
Maybe taking some heat. He just got the job for the Raiders. But there's a reason. And look, say what you want about what Telesco's done with the Chargers. There's a reason why everybody in the media hypes them up every year. It's because when you look at the roster, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
And it's led by a good quarterback. So the reason why the Chargers are always hyped up is because you go up and down the roster, you say you got good players there. You got a pretty good offensive line now. You got pretty good pass catchers. You got some stars on defense. Okay, you got good players. So he's stepping into good players here. And then he's got to put his stamp on it. And maybe where Harbaugh's strengths are, toughness, run game, defense, that's going to fill a gap where the Chargers' weaknesses have been. So that's where I'm intrigued by this.
Yeah, Brad was pointing out on Twitter when they made that hiring that it sort of bucks the trend of second time around GMs. Like there haven't been many of those hired recently, and certainly not like immediately after getting fired the first time around. But then Moton on Twitter pointed out Raiders GM since 2011, which 2011 is presumably the Mark Davis transfer point, right? Or something like that. Hugh Jackson, de facto first-time GM. Reggie McKenzie, first-time GM. Mike Mayock, first-time GM. Dave Ziegler, first-time GM. And now Tom Telesco, 11 years of experience as being a GM. So I think if you're the Raiders or a Raiders fan looking at this and going, at least Mark Davis is trying not to make the same mistake he's made 4 times consecutively.
Yeah.
Like, he's trying to do something different, and whether or not
it's experience.
And whether or not it's the right call. And I think, the same thing with Antonio Pierce, right? Like everyone wanted you to hire Rich Bisaccia. You went in a different direction. That was a train wreck. So at least he's not trying to just make the same mistake again. Whether or not it works out, I think you have to give him credit for trying to learn from past screw-ups.
Yeah, I agree. There's also, I'll just say this. It would be interesting to see what Harbaugh can pull off with the Chargers. We work with every team. There are certain limitations some teams have that others don't, financially, right? The Chargers might have some more limitations than other teams. So from a Harbaugh perspective, can he break through some of that? And from a Telesco perspective, will he have a little bit more at his disposal with Mark Davis and the Raiders?
And also,
I'm trying to say this
right. But also simply the fact
diplomatically.
that they're hiring Harbaugh suggests that the limitations aren't that great. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
the man
I
was
get
on like $8.8 million a year at Michigan or whatever. So presumably he's now getting paid more than that. You've got money to spend. It's not like the cupboard is bare here.